The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Listen in as your host, Casey Colburn, brings together a perfectly picked panel of guests to discuss hot topics and events within the metaphysical and paranormal field. But don't worry, should the discussions get too heated, our studio's witch will sound her cackle to simmer the cauldron back down. Listen for new episodes of Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. only on Paranormal Buzz Radio. Welcome to Cauldron Talk. This is Season 2, Episode 8. I'm your host, Casey Colburn, and today we welcome to the circle Tom and Tim Conwell. Today we are talking about UFOs and aliens. So welcome to Cauldron Talk, guys. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, my name's Tom Conwell. I've been a ufologist for just about the amount of time that I've been retired. That's going on approximately 11 years now. I'm also a paranormal investigator, former electronic technician with Honeywell. I was with Honeywell for about 36 and a half years, and I also did electronics while I was in the Navy. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Well, I'm a paranormal investigator. I've been doing investigating probably almost about, 8 years now, 9 years, close to 10. I just came back from the Shanley Hotel last week, and just trying to get out, just hanging out with some friends and just doing stuff like that. I work for the state of New York. I also do another side job, so I'm 7 days a week. I help my father out. He writes the books. I go out and to paranormal events. And just, help his information to be pushed, to be out there so people can understand that, it's not all about paranormal. It's more looking up in the skies. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Today we are talking about UFOs and aliens. So my first question for you guys, what exactly is a ufologist, an alien, and a UFO? Okay,
well, ufology is pretty much the study, they are looking at the people who study UFOs. Okay, it's a study of people who study UFOs. It's not necessarily about UFOs. It's about looking into the study of UFOs. It's very odd. When that was described to me the first time, I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me, but the people that look at the UFO problem, there's some real characters out here. Let me tell you, some really interesting people, and these are some people that try very hard to figure out what the aliens are up to. They think about it, they dream about it. And we try to look at every possibility and see why aliens are here, what they may be doing, and something along that line. So that's pretty much my thoughts. Tim, do you have anything in that regard?
I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, I look at it as, there are different topics. I mean, you got paranormal, you got paranormal investigators, you got Bigfoot, you got, the Bigfoot. It's just a different theory, different explanation. So, he described it pretty much, the way I'm thinking.
Yeah, it kind of sounds similar to when I learned what parapsychology was and that it wasn't the study of the paranormal, it was like, wait, what? So that I completely. So this is definitely going to be an interesting topic. I am a fish completely out of water for this one. So I apologize ahead of time.
Sometimes we feel like that too.
Yeah, I work mostly within like the metaphysical area of things and with the paranormal.
Which, if you look at it as paranormal, things pop up and you're like, wait, I never thought of that before. So it's the same thing with, doing the research on, UFOs. I hear him all the time. He's like, I never thought of that. Or he'll sit there and write something. He'll sit there and look at it for like, 3 days to a week. And then it's like the light bulb comes on. So it's all about science.
So along with science, there's also the history of things. When did aliens and UFOs first emerge in history?
Well, aliens have been around to talk about them for not that many years. However, things have been seen in the sky for quite some time. What has been there's historical events of UFOs being seen from the Middle Ages. There's events in the 1800s, 1900s. There's always been events of strange things being seen in the sky, but not that often did people jump to aliens until recently. And by recently, I mean the 1940s. That's approximately the time that the Roswell crash occurred, and people said, where did this come from? Well, the first thought was, these ships are not ours, so they must be from another place. And this other place, that's where the aliens came in. That's the most recent talk about aliens was the 40s. Now it has been increasing ever since, and so have the sightings. There's been a lot of things seen in the sky in the 50s, more in the 60s, more in the 70s, all the way up to about 2010, when there was an absolute explosion of sightings. And this was pretty interesting because this explosion of sightings came with several people assembling databases about these sightings. And from the databases that were assembled, people would look into the databases and try to make their conclusions from there. It's been a pretty interesting deal. Let's see what I said. 2010 was when it really started to ramp up, and 2015 it was at the peak, and it sort of dropped off after that until most recently. And this year and the year before, there's another peak coming up. There's been a lot of things seen in the sky, and UFOs and aliens brought it to mind, like I said, in the 40s, and more so all the way up to the present.
Well, I was in college, and I was taking fine arts, and as my professor was going through with one of my art history classes or courses, she actually brought up, and it kind of opened my mind up, I think right about then, with some of the fresco paintings that they have. That, Dad has, the research. But when it came down to these paintings, thinking about it, and then when you asked me, to be on the show, it was a light bulb that came on. It's like, I wish I can, give you the name of the these fresco paintings, but unfortunately, I'm not the best, explain of what it is. But the paintings they have some kind of description of a flying saucer. In the background, you actually would see people looking up in the skies. So yes, it might not be, the alien types, or they know something or seen something. The Egyptian, artwork, stuff like that. So, me thinking about it, I would say it's a lot earlier, because there's some kind of proofs that in paintings that they have. They say George Washington always left his troops, which is, I remember this is fully documented, that he would walk away and would talk to someone. Yes, he might be talking to, his mind, his thoughts, his thinking, whatever else. But, there's one painting that always, gets me, is that there's one painting in the White House. Hopefully it's still there, but no one took it down. But the painting actually has a staircase to going to the sky, which that could be interpreted in multiple different ways. But why did this person actually paint some form of ladder going to the skies? It could be the gods, or it could be, him thinking, why he talked to, something. It could be anything. But paintings have something also that I think that, there's truth that there's out there.
So how can a person identify a UFO from other objects? I know in recent time we just had everybody thought that a blimp was a UFO. So how do they identify them from normal objects in the sky?
That was the worst video ever I've seen, if you're talking about the same one.
I think it was in New Jersey, maybe?
Yeah. The whole panic.
Mm.
Go ahead.
Okay. How can you identify a UFO? Well, with something that pops up in the sky that is beyond your normal explanation, well, that becomes an unidentified flying object, or UFO. If you've seen a UFO, boy, oh boy, your life has almost changed. These things are so incredible. They'll do things in the sky that airplanes cannot do. And you look and you say to yourself, this is not one of ours. It's really an eye-opening experience. As far as the UFO goes, you are saying that if there's something that you cannot put your finger on, something you've never seen before, something that an airplane cannot do, well, that's a UFO. Tim?
Well, what you said, as many ufologists that I talked to, and going back with me and my father, I have now, because of just listening to a lot of the people that I know that through him, there's usually 5 ideas that I always go through, because I saw something and I went through these 5 things, and there's nothing to explain about. It's relating to like flashing lights. You have to have a flashing light on any kind of aircraft. Even a drone has flashing lights. You have to, get certified by, to fly them. There's painting stripes. On a small little plane, there's some kind of small stripe, or even a big plane, writing, something like that. Is there windows? Is there a front and, side wings, back wings? Is there a motor? Is there noise? I see it, if you can go through that, 5 little characteristics, okay, there's something you can't explain. what is this object? You're looking at a binoculars and you're seeing this. What is this object? And you went through these 5 things several times. Now you're stuck.
What are some of the theories that surround aliens walking among us? Like, I've heard a little bit of, like, they're kind of like a shapeshifter type of entity, or like they're a little bit more ethereal. What are some of the theories that surround them?
Wow, there's a whole bunch of them. There have been thoughts that there's aliens living in bases underground in the west, out in the mountains. That they're living underwater in off of the east and west coast and throughout the world. There's talk about them being in the ocean off of Europe, and the ocean off of Australia, and the South Pole. There's all kinds of thoughts about aliens being all around us, and conspiracy theories that they're all over the place. So it's been very interesting learning about all of these theories, because some of them are backed up by the research. In other words, there's tons of sightings in and around where people say that there's an underwater base in, let's say, Florida area, and also in the West Coast, right off of Los Angeles, where there's a tremendous amount of sightings. So it's backed up by sighting reports. It's also backed up by the conspiracy theories. It's very, very interesting.
I basically agree with him, because just looking at his map, that what research he's done, and from the people with the sightings, you get sightings out in the middle of the water that they just go into a water, and it's a kaboom, not a big old splash. Why are they going down there? What's the reason that they can go down that far and we can't? There's got to be something dealing with water, no matter what. From Michigan, as and California, and down in Florida, down the Bermuda Triangle, overseas, all that kind of stuff. It's just unusual.
So how could a person identify an alien that's walking around with us? Is there any defining features or any tells that we could use to identify them?
No. They are so good at adapting themselves to us that they can walk around pretty much undetected. And I believe they've been doing that for quite a few years.
Like you even said from just 2 seconds ago, Casey, it's just, them forming into us, in some kind of way. From what I've just learned and, what's been said, it's just they hide. They hide very well. So, and they blend right in. So, but there's no 100% pinpoint that they're here, but it's around somehow.
I know a lot of people too, they believe that there are there's multiple races of them, like with the reptilians and things like that. Is there any fact to that, or any what's your guys' opinions on that?
Okay. About 15 years ago, someone compiled a list based on reports of people that were taken, based on reports of people that have met varying aliens. There was about, forget the number. I think it was about 75 or 80 different races of peoples that were visiting us. And like I said, this list was compiled from a bunch of a bunch of reports from people who claim that they've seen them. Now, are they all right? I'm not sure. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it. I had an opportunity to interview some people who were abducted, and they told me of several different races of people that they met. One was a short gray alien. That's the one that you see pictured on TV with the big wide eyes, black eyes, and there's that one. And then there's a tall gray, and then there's a race of people, and I don't know if it's the same race or a different race, but they look like they look similar to ants. It's very unusual. And then there is the reptilians that are talked about by a lot of different people. Casey, I don't know if they're all real, but I know that some of them are, and that's as much as I can tell you.
And I would look at more of, just a few people that I've been to, events or conferences or whatever the case would be, just, talking to these people, and then the descriptions of, the small, little people, big head, black eyes, the reptilians, having these dreams that, these are people are having. There's got to be something, but unfortunately, no one has captured them, documentary and, put them on TV, the real thing, and explain, yes, they're here. But, I can't say no that these people are lying. There's got to be some kind of truth.
Mm-hmm. So you Tom, you had mentioned the abductions. What is the theory about abductions? Like, why do people get abducted?
Whoa, there's a lot of information around that, and most of the people who have theories about it are guessing. Okay, we don't know, because this is an advanced race of people, far advanced from us, and we can't really get into their minds. Now, there's been thoughts that they are taking us for our DNA. They're using portions of our DNA to supplement their own. Perhaps they have replicated so many times that they've created problems for themselves, and they need some fresh DNA. That's the one main thought. I feel that there's something else that's going on. I think that what they're doing is they're tinkering with us. They'll take us, and pretty soon they will have improved our psychic abilities. That's the one thing that seems to be a common thread in the greatest majority of the abductions. The people are psychic, and they have come back and told stories that they find themselves more psychic and more aware of psychic things after they've been taken. So there's two schools of thought here, maybe even some more, but I think they're messing with our mind and trying to determine at what point we are in the process of awakening, being aware of more and more things. And you see that a lot in the paranormal field, this awakening idea. And I think that we are awakening as a population. That's where I think the thrust is, and they're trying to help us along in that regard. Tim, you have any thoughts in that?
No, I totally agree. Just with everybody that I've talked to, just being the people that are psychic and somehow just coming out to be, oh, what's going on with that? And they're like, there's got to be, something, is being told, some awakening.
So with communications, being psychic is one way to kind of communicate with entities. But what are some of the, like, I'll use paranormal equipment as an example because it's what I go to for it. So what equipment would we use to communicate with them, or what metaphysical tools or means would we use to communicate with them?
Okay. Everything that I've heard to date has been information that when they have met an alien, that the intercommunication that goes on between two people is non-spoken. It's all mental. I haven't heard any other accounts from people that say they actually spoke with someone who's alien, except for one, and that was a bunch of people in where were they? I think they were in Sweden or something, and they actually talked physically. They said they physically talked with someone in a craft, and I don't believe that there is any equipment or anything else along this way that can be used to either communicate or to detect or anything else like that. Having said that, it's possible to detect some of the UFOs if you happen to be close to them. If you had a meter, something like a K2 meter, you may be able to see a little bit of light action from this, or magnetic field kickback if you're in the proximity of a UFO spacecraft. But any of the detectors or anything like that cannot be used to find an actual alien.
You're right. Completely. There's no tool. I mean, there's the only thing that you can use, I think it is, and Dad and I did this. We actually went out into Nevada. It's like right outside of Vegas, and we did a I don't know, alien con or something like that, or however they described it. But we went out and we did a night watch, and the 3 or 4 girls that actually were doing this, they actually had military night vision goggles, and both of us seen some weird things that a satellite can't just go straight and turn around, stop, and go the same direction where it came, or did a weird 90-degree angle in one direction and go the opposite direction. There's the unexplainable, because a plane can't do that, a satellite can't do that. Anything that we have besides maybe a plane, but I don't think that's going to happen if we don't know it. Seeing with these night vision goggles out in the desert of nowhere, that's the only thing that there's nothing that we can explain. Why are these little lights, going this direction when they just did a dead stop? So, I mean, there are, that type of goggle, or there's a couple night vision, cameras that are coming out, but they're not cheap. That you can kind of see the stars. I have one myself, but I haven't seen an aircraft. But I don't think where we are in New York, it's not the best star watching to do with. So
Let me throw something else in here. Occasionally, with infrared cameras, that you can point that to the sky, and you'll see things that will reveal craft that are hidden from our regular view. Sometimes it will pick out a heat trace from these craft, but occasionally you'll see it that way. But there's not a whole lot of equipment other than the night vision goggles and infrared that can detect an alien craft, and there's nothing that I know of that will detect an alien.
right, exactly.
With the UFOs, when they do land, with the crop circles and things like that, do they actually, like in some of the movies, you'll see them like testing the soil and stuff? Is there anything that they could actually be looking for with that? Maybe traces of metal or something?
Wow. I'm actually not sure. I don't know what they're doing. It's hard for me to say that I do. It would be impossible for me to say that. But all that we can do is speculate what they're testing for. Is it for trace elements of metals? Is it for biological life? I have no idea. Honestly, Casey, I have no idea.
There's no explanation on why or what, or what's there. So
I imagine they probably are looking for traces of like radiation and things like that too, just to see why the crops would be laying there if it isn't related to UFOs.
Okay, now if you're talking about crop circles, that's a whole different ballgame. These are done by some sort of a device that is creating a huge magnetic field, and they're pushing down the crops into specific patterns. At the time of the crop circle, and for some time thereafter, there is a trace of electromagnetic fields that are put into the crops. You'll have electronic equipment if you happen to take it into the crop circle. The stuff will fail. That will happen frequently. But to tell you that they are looking for and fill in the blank, I can't do that because I don't know what they're doing.
Okay.
that's true.
Getting into all the like science stuff, I get really like curious about what they're looking for. When I did some research about EMF, and I'm like, well, I think maybe the first question I needed to ask was, what is EMF, and where does it come from? And so I definitely get way into the science part of things. So I apologize if my questions become too complex, because I wonder.
I had an opportunity to study EMF for the first couple of years after I retired, and what EMF is to me is when you get electricity that runs through a wire, you could either hook it up to a battery and draw current at the far end of this wire. When you draw current, the flow of electricity creates a magnetic field, magnetism. It will, if you were to put a magnet in the area of battery that is running electric current, the magnet will align up in certain regards north and south. There is no doubt that magnetic fields are trackable. But when you're dealing with what the UFO is creating, or anything along this regard, and you are looking to track them via a particular device, well, then that gets into an area of science that we know nothing about yet.
So with the metaphysical side of the field, because I know that there are some psychics that perceive that they're communicating with extraterrestrials instead of, your typical spirit or angel or demon. What are your thoughts on that sort of thing?
Boy, I can't say that they are or aren't. Since I'm not a psychic, I can't say what they are or aren't communicating with. That's just that's beyond me. I also cannot guarantee that they won't ever communicate with an alien. I just don't know, Casey. I have no. This is an area that I'm completely in the cold with. Tim, do you have any thoughts about that?
I'm the same way, but it's just being the empath and sensitive. There's times that I think I'm looking around, I'm getting these ideas, thoughts, or feelings, and I'm like, all right, where is it coming from? But if someone's really that psychic that can do it, is it really true? Are they, or could they talk to someone that's, I don't know, it just throws it up in the air, and I wish there's a little button or a little switch, that you see a light bulb and you're like, oh, that's what it, it's crazy to think about.
I know along with that, like with the growing spirituality, some of the lines are being blurred too.
Yes.
And so a lot of people are actually saying now that extraterrestrials, aliens, are the same as deities or angels and demons. So they're the same thing. Do you guys have any opinion on that?
Whoa.
You're opening a can of worms.
Yeah. They definitely are not. They definitely are not demons. I'm not a fan of demons even existing. They aren't. Wow. I'm struggling for words here because when extraterrestrials find their way to our planet through billions and trillions of miles, I believe that what they utilize is they utilize different dimensions. Now, these dimensions are also parallel to and touching on the same dimensions that are utilized by, let's say, angels and the spirit world. So if we see one or the other, I think to us it would be the same thing because we wouldn't be able to determine the differences.
100% true, because we don't know what's really there. It's the same thing, in paranormal. We don't know what's there. If it's a male or a female. It could be saying a male, but it's really a female. Coming down to, if it's an alien, we don't know what's there. There's no rhyme or reason until we have more evidence.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It was definitely an interesting thing when I was reading up a little bit about all this, because I believe that a lot of the deities that we have on Earth are the same. We just call them by different names. So to just kind of like that thought a little bit further, that maybe they are, like, by technicalities, I guess, like an extraterrestrial, but I don't, again, I'm completely out of my range of knowledge for all of this, so it's just speculation and thought from me. But it was definitely an interesting thing to kind of come across.
Yeah, it's speculation for all of us too. Unless you're a psychic and you can actually
Talk to
communicate back and forth with something, you won't know what you're talking to. And most of the time, psychics just get impressions. You don't find very, very many who can actually communicate.
Yeah, it takes quite a lot of work to get to that point where you can, one kind of, with the dimensions, like, the further away, the harder it is to communicate. So it's harder to communicate with the higher realms, like the angels and things like that. It's much easier to communicate with the lower vibrations, the lower energies. So that's why a lot of the times we just communicate with spirit.
Yeah.
But also too, you gotta understand who you're actually talking to if they're really a psychic. I don't know if you picked this up, but there's people out there, they're calling them there's some psychics right now, and it's like, I feel like, there's a trend of that one medium that was on TV all the time, and I can't remember her name, something Leo, and it's just like, okay, are you a fake psychic, or are you just, finding your way, and, the light has kind of like opened up in you and you're just spurting out stuff and believing it,
Yeah,
I've met a few psychics that I just want to, like, put duct tape over their mouth, because it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, you make no sense sometimes, and it's just, and they keep going. I'm like, okay, sure, yep. It's so, I guess you got to find that, the strong psychics that, actually really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a trend that's, and spirituality, you see it all across the board, including bits and pieces of the paranormal field. It's just very trendy right now. I don't know how many times I've just kind of, like, caught my breath, because I see somebody just lighting up sage and grabbing whatever crystal they want, and then, not knowing how to use it, and then they call you and they're like, hey, now I've got this problem.
I went to an event in Philadelphia, not to, throw this off, but she was telling me, oh, you're going to do this, you're going to do this and this. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not here to get a reading, that kind of thing. And I just took it to assault, and I'm like, okay, I'll think about it. But as we're investigating, she was saying things off the wall, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, I'm a psychic. I do this and I do that. I'm like, that, and she's talking about construction. And I'm like, where are you getting psychic to be construction? And the leader looked at me and goes, I understood what you're saying, but what? And I'm like, and she's your psychic. You might want to talk to her. Like, that does not make sense, what she just said in a big old, public thing. And it's just like, it's hard to find out. It's like, can you really believe every psychic that's out there? Me personally, I'd rather be with them for 6 hours, listening to them, reading their body language, reading their eyes, then really, say, yes, okay, I believe you, or I think you're a fraud.
Right. Yeah, definitely considering the source of whatever, you're being told. And that's not just with the paranormal or with UFOs, it's with everything. Just consider the source. And so I totally get it. There's a lot of people out there who And I do believe that everybody has the ability to be psychic. I think it's just like, for a lack of terms, like a muscle you have to grow and, build strength to.
Right.
Because if you didn't use it, you're not going to be very good at it.
Right.
So
And myself, I've talked to, I don't know how many lost count in the last 8 or 9 years, and I've had 3 psychics that basically told me, and I totally believe this due to the theories that I've seen, the aspect I've seen, that you actually talk to God first. You actually have a conversation. That's what I've been told, and I totally believe this in so many different ways that, from that discussion, how you live, how you grow, how you die, not, who, what job you have, how much you get, nothing like that. Just, basic common things. If you're going to have, cancer or something like that, or whatever the case would be of that conversation. And you have a description of when you actually open up. And I realized just for myself that, yes, I knew things when I was a kid, but the light bulb really brightened completely when I was like, I don't know, 36, 37. I'm 43 now. And it's like, oh, now, other people are like, yes, I'm a psychic. What? I just knew you 3 weeks ago and you had no idea what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a trend. So to get back to UFOs a little bit, one of my last questions here for you guys, I like to get into how the media affects certain topics and certain aspects of the field. So from H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds to Greg Mottle's movie Paul, those are 2 completely different takes on alien life and UFOs. But how does the media affect the field of research?
Ooh. That's an interesting question. And the reason it is because Hollywood is being fed the types of stories that they are permitted to use. In other words, I believe that someone is giving them storylines so that they can produce stories that will help the population of the earth to accept aliens better in the future. I don't think tomorrow aliens are going to land, but what I do think is that we're going to be introduced to alien life in the very near future in very slow amounts of dribs and drabs. And over the period of the next 10 years, we're going to be exposed to all kinds of alien life. And the people in the know on the earth are feeding Hollywood what shows that they can produce. And it's all part of our gaining knowledge. This should be a real interesting scenario in the next 10 years or so, because if you noticed, there's more and more stories about alien life. Well, that's not an accident.
It's a coincidence.
Yeah, they're being the storylines are being told to us through Hollywood, and that's to get us all used to the fact that that's what they want us to know. Tim, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. No, it's exactly the same thing. Like, if I don't know how, age-wise, but think of the movie or the TV series V. It's basically, they kind of like slowly introduce, the next thing they land, the next thing they are migrating. Could that be? It's gonna happen, and it's gonna, have a mass hysteria, or, it's gonna be a crazy world like this coronavirus. Like, the world's gonna be turned upside down if and when it happens.
Yeah, I always, my mom's like really big into like UFOs and things like that. She was a big fan of X-Files, so I always talk to her and I always ask her, how do you know it's not going to be like War of the Worlds? But that's always just joking around, just to get her going a little bit.
There's been several races that have lived on the Earth for tens of thousands of years, and I believe they actually helped us to advance ourselves. And this particular race of aliens is helping us along, as in little bits and starts. They've given us some information and gotten us going towards certain things like space and stuff like that. This group of aliens was never thinking that they're going to attack us and take us over, because they would have done that long ago when it was simple. Now, it's certainly a whole lot more complex now, and we do have some nuclear weapons, and they don't want us to get into a lucky shot. So they've been helping us trying to evolve. And I can't speak for all of the alien races out there. There may be some bad ones. Well, there probably are. Most of them have evolved to a point where they just want to welcome us into reality and bring us into their into their life, into their world, and welcome us to the
next step of life.
Yeah, with all of the other aliens that are out there. So they don't want us to take over. They want us as part of them.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like a next Star Trek kind of thing.
Yes.
I mean, that's the only way to describe it. It's gonna be one huge community in some kind of way. The good versus the bad, and protecting everybody.
Yeah, that sounds similar to the book I was just reading, the Thyuga Prophecy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But basically, they abduct a guy and they show him their way so that he can come back and kind of tell the story. And that was their kind of goal, was to be kind of a guiding entity that helps us kind of move on, evolve a little bit. So kind of the similar sentiments there.
Right. And Dad even said, I don't know how many, multiple times, that the people that he interviewed who were abducted, they always said, take care of your planet. So it could be a direction on that too.
Mm-hmm. So lastly, what advice would you guys give to someone wanting to explore the field of UFOs and ufology?
Wow. I hope that the people from that are thinking about ufology now are database experts, because that's where the information is. There's several databases that have If you can combine them, there may be up to 170,000 sightings since the 1990s, and the real information about what's going on, about where they are, and things like that. There may even be hints about why they're here. All of that information can be deduced from the varying databases. And if they're good with electronics, if they're good with databases, they can read and give us ideas about what's going on. So anyone in the future who's going to be looking at UFOs, well, they should be database experts, because that's where the information is.
100%, totally agree. It's the database and a lot of reading. You can't just look in the sky and go, oh, UFO, yep, wrote a book, or I saw lights. It's the databases, with his map, that it explains it all, 100%. All of his research was databases that related to, 6 books now? Going on 7?
Now 5 going on 6.
Okay, I was close. I was giving you credit. There's probably another one swirling in your head. But, it's what it is. It's, people are not thinking about databases. And he's been told by a few people, oh my God, I wish I, thought about the databases. This is where it is. So
yeah, I think definitely that's some solid advice. I actually wouldn't have myself thought about that sort of thing, but it makes complete sense. My advice would be to do research, do your homework, make sure that it sounds like this is something that's going to take quite a lot of time, so make sure that you give yourself that commitment to it if you're going to go through with it, because it definitely is something that there's so many topics within it that it's going to probably take quite a lot of time, I imagine. So, well, thank you so much for being on my show. I appreciate it so much, and I will talk to you guys later.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having us.
With that, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you guys so much for being on.
Okay, thanks a whole lot.
You.
Bye.
All right,
Okay,
have a
bye
good
now.
Thank you for joining my circle tonight. It was a pleasure to discuss this spooky topic with you, and a thank you to all my listeners for tuning in. And as always, dreadful dreams. Remember, my darlings, to always be kind to those around you, including our friends with claws, fangs, and fur. Hello, darling. Love the show and want to be more involved? All while showing your support? Have I got the perfect thing for you? Subscribe to my Patreon page today, and as a patron, you'll have the option to select which tier you are interested in, with exclusive patron-only offers from early access, live stream chats, shoutouts, distant readings, and so much more. If this has piqued your interest, please follow the link in the chat or go to patreon.com and search Cauldron Talk with Casey Colburn and become a patron today. Thank you for your support, darlings, and as always, dreadful dreams.